Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Hugh Freeze, the Auburn Tigers kicking off their spring game this Saturday. Want to go over some question marks and kind of some storylines heading into that spring game for Hugh Freeze and this Auburn program. And I'll start with this. I am extremely excited for this spring game, specifically for the Auburn Tigers, because when you look at how this roster is constructed, a lot of new faces, not only in the transfer portal, but a ton of talent coming in that freshman class that you kind of think is going to contribute for Auburn in 2024. Going to kind of get our first taste of what these guys are going to mean to the program during that 2024 season. Really excited to get into this one. We'll be hopping on right after the spring game to kind of recap what we saw. Before we get into some storylines, just want to say thank you to you guys. A massive shout out to the Auburn Tiger fans, whether we're talking about spring practice notes, whether we're talking the recruiting trail. You guys continue to show a ton of support to the fellas. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And much more importantly, would love to hear some storylines, some players that you are keeping an eye on as well. And without further ado, let's get into this one, and let's start with what's probably the biggest question mark for this Auburn program, or at least storyline for this Auburn program. That is the quarterback spot. And from what I've been reading from the spring practice notes, from guys that have seen practice, it does sound like Peyton Thorne probably the inside track to be the starting quarterback, followed by Hank Brown. And the thing I'll talk about with Peyton Thorne, and I get there are a lot of Auburn fans that don't want to see Peyton Thorne as the starting quarterback in 2024. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and argue with that. I completely understand that sentiment. But the one argument I would make for Peyton Thorne, being a Michigan fan myself, is I've seen Peyton Thorne play some really good football when he is supplied with the talent around him. You go back to that 2021 year, and Peyton Thorne led Michigan State to a 10-win season, threw for over 3,200 yards, 27 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. And what does that tell us? And it tells us that Peyton Thorne is capable of winning a lot of games for this Auburn program in 2024. I think you go back to 2023, and there were a couple things working against Peyton Thorne. One, there was a disconnect in this offense. You know, Hugh Freeze, it was clear, didn't have his fingerprints as much on this offense as we would have thought. But then you start talking about some other things, right? Peyton Thorne was not in for spring practice. He certainly did not have a lot of talent around him. Going into 2024, I think a lot of boxes are kind of checked. One, I think this offensive line probably takes a step in the right direction, but more importantly, one, you got Hugh Freeze. I think a little bit more in control of what this offense is going to look like. We all know Hugh Freeze, one of the better offensive-minded coaches in the country. That's certainly going to help Peyton Thorne. He has a full spring practice under his belt, and probably the biggest thing I'm excited for is, the talent around Peyton Thorne, specifically in that wide receiver room, is much improved from last year. And again, when Peyton Thorne was surrounded by good talent at Michigan State, he won a lot of football games. So can we get Peyton Thorne comfortable in this Auburn offense? That is going to be a question mark. And obviously we're going to get to see Hank Brown. And I think Hank Brown's a guy that going into spring was kind of my guy. I was pretty vocal about my support of Hank Brown. I go back to that bowl game and you look at Hank Brown, and it was clear that Hank Brown, as a freshman, had a lot of command of that offense against Maryland. And I get it was garbage time, but that was about as clean as we've seen that Auburn passing attack look throughout that whole 2023 year. And it was true freshman Hank Brown running the offense. Excited to see both of these quarterbacks, but I think a lot of Auburn fans are even more excited to see what this wide receiver room looks like. And I want to start with the true freshman Cam Coleman. And a lot of y'all who've been listening for a while know that I don't normally bang the table for true freshmen. And Cam Coleman's a little bit different. And I think most importantly, Cam Coleman brings to Auburn something that was massively missing from Auburn's offense last year, and that was a wide receiver that could win vertically down the field. You look at Auburn's numbers throwing 20-plus yards down the field last year, a 28% completion percentage. They really did not have a wide receiver that could win vertically down the field. Cam Coleman has the speed, he has the body type, and he also has the athleticism to be that guy as a true freshman. One of the things I'm looking for, whether it's Peyton Thorne, whether it's Hank Brown, whether it's Walker White or Holden Garner, I'm looking for Auburn to push the ball down the field a little bit more than we saw in 2023. And I think Cam Coleman is probably that guy. But you look around the wide receiver room, not only are you bringing in guys like Cam Coleman, Bryce Kane, Robert Lewis through the transfer portal, I think there's a lot of reason to be excited about the wide receivers that were in this Auburn offense last year going into 2024 because they were young, right? Jay Fair was a true sophomore. I thought he looked really good at times. Caleb Burton really did come on for Auburn last year as well. These aren't a bunch of guys that have been with this program for 4 years or going into their 5th year. These are young wide receivers that you kind of expect to probably take that step in 2024. I think most Auburn fans would agree, whether you're a Peyton Thorne guy, whether you're a Hank Brown guy, whether you're a Walker White guy, that the wide receiver room around whoever's starting at quarterback for Auburn is going to be much improved. And I think that means good things for this Auburn passing attack. Rivaldo Fairweather, obviously another guy that I'm a massive fan of. That running back room, I don't have many questions about that running back room. I've been vocal about Jarquez Hunter not only being one of the better running backs in the SEC, but in the country. I'm kind of interested to see how the rotation shakes out. Who's going to kind of be that running back two behind Jarquez Hunter? But if you're an Auburn fan, you feel pretty good about what that running back room is going to look like. The last thing I'll be keeping an eye on is that offensive line where Percy Lewis comes in from Mississippi State. And I am a massive fan of Percy Lewis. I think that allows you not only to probably get some better play at left tackle, but you kick Dylan Wade into guard, and I think that's his best spot. So I think you're improving 2 positions with the addition of Percy Lewis. Connor Lew's an absolute dog at center. I think this Auburn offensive line is going to look pretty solid as well. I think most of our attention will be on the quarterback play, the wide receiver play, and kind of what this passing attack looks like with Hugh Freeze, Coach Nix, kind of having their fingerprints on this offense. Now, going to the defensive side of the football, my eyes, and you all know I'm kind of a recruiting nerd, so my eyes are going to be on some of these true freshmen. Starting up front, Amaris Williams and a guy like Jamonta Waller, 2 guys, Amaris Williams especially, that I absolutely love coming out of high school. What does this Auburn pass rush look like heading into 2024? Because you look at the talent in that room, although young at spots, I think this can be a really good pass rush for Auburn. Jalen McLeod really did come on as an absolute dude for Auburn at that Jack linebacker spot. We saw the flashes from Keldrick Falk, and then you sprinkle in guys like Malik Bogdan, Amaris Williams, Jamonta Waller. It's a young pass rush group, but I think it can be a damn good one. And on the inside, you're kind of looking for what that depth looks like on the inside of that defensive line. I think the last question that a lot of us are going to be keyed in on is, what does that defensive back room look like? And I think there's a lot of guys to be excited about. I'm more kind of concerned, or not concerned, but interested in Charles Kelly, DJ Durkin. How do they put the puzzle pieces together in that Auburn secondary? You have a guy in Jaron Thompson who's gotten really positive reviews during spring practice. I was a massive fan of that addition. Antonio Kite been making a lot of good plays as well. Keontae Scott, where are we going to use him at the boundary cornerback spot at that star position? There are a lot of pieces in that Auburn defensive back room that are talented and they're versatile. And I think a lot of our questions are not necessarily what the talent level is, but how are those guys shaking out? Where are we slotting each of these talented players in, kind of putting that puzzle piece together in that defensive back room? Hugh Freeze said it's going to be good on good. You're going to get the offense one versus the defense one. And that's always really exciting because you get a really good feel of what these units are going to look like playing SEC caliber play. When you have the offense one going up against kind of the scout team defense or the third defense, it's harder to get a feel. I think you're going to get a really competitive spring practice on Saturday. Knock on wood, the weather is going to be a little bit better than it was last year because, again, the biggest questions that we have, this Auburn team checks a lot of boxes. I mean, if this passing attack can take some strides forward, which a lot of reasons to think it does, I mean, I am really excited to see what this offense looks like, what the new talent looks like for this Auburn program, and then we'll hop on after and kind of talk about what we saw. Does Auburn need to go into the transfer portal and address any positions? Really excited about this one. We'll hop on Saturday afternoon after this game closes up, talk about what we saw. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Would love to hear from y'all in the comment section on some storylines that you want to be following during spring practice. We'll address them after that spring game. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to you Saturday afternoon after that spring game. Appreciate all the support, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.